Hello, everyone. Welcome back in to the NRG Championship Series in Lansing. I'm Corbin Hostler, joined by my co-host for the evening, Devin Doomwick O'Donnell, and we are here to take you through our team trios 10K. We are about to head into round 7, and then, of course, our top 8 after that. So there is a lot going on today in Lansing. Of course, we're coming off of a standard 10K yesterday where we saw some standard gameplay featuring a lot of some very popular cards. We'll leave it at that. But the 10K team trial is today. And as we talk about, these team events bring out everyone, and they are always a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, gameplay is certainly a way to describe it. But yeah, we do have a little bit of EV in our feature match, but not a ton of it. But yeah, last match we started off on the popper side, and I think we're gonna get you a little bit more popper action as well. Because,
That's
but to be
right.
honest with you, Corbin, that watching that popper match, that was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, and we've actually got some good decks across the board lined up for you in this round. But what are these teams playing for? Let's check that out before we head down to the match. This weekend, first place is playing for $3,000 per team. That's $1,000 a player if my math checks out. Also 30 points per player, which is, of course, massive for all of those players trying to earn points on the NRG series towards the end of the season championship. That is what everyone wants to make, what you want to qualify for. And this is how you do it, is by putting up a big finish. Second place finishers, of course, going to get $1,500 a team, paying on out down to 12th place with points going to anyone, but even the top 128 get you 2 points there. So let's look at some of those players who have been at the top of the NRG series leaderboard all season. How have they done through 6 rounds today? Well, the team at the bottom has dropped off, but everyone else doing at least okay here. Of course, Dykeman, Suleiman, and Smith doing very well. Looks like they are probably on their way to drawing into that top 8. And 3 more teams, at least on the bubble, as you see there. Canford, Cates, Nimitz, who we just watched in that last round, they are sitting at 4-2. Bedell, French, Ayers, Fogue, Gonzalez, and Smith, all at 3-3. So that is who you have been watching throughout the weekend. They hit up all of these NRG events. They've been putting up points towards that end of the season championship. Some of them you're going to see there. And I think these players who are still battling it out in round 7 are going to hope to join our already qualified players. So here we go. Coming in on popper, Patrick Selly on the left. We watched him in that seat last round burn out Grayson Nimitz. He's against Aaron Mitoki on Affinity this time around.
Yep. So we're going to be seeing a little bit more popper action. I did just want to bring up. So you mentioned players drawing into top 8. There was a bit of a weird kind of thing that shook up with the standings. So after towards the end of the round, it was looking like if both of the other X1 matches had concluded and finished in not in a draw, then there would have been a clean cut. But we actually had we had a draw towards the end of last round, which created 2 separate win-ins here, pair downs, and it was not clean, so not everybody could draw. So, excited to see some win and in magic here for top 8. And you mentioned we saw the burn deck from Patrick in the last round defeat the Is It Terror deck from Grease and Nemitz. This time we're going to be playing up against Affinity. Now, if you're familiar with Affinity, in the current Modern and past iterations of Modern, it's really a lot about, fast mana, Springleaf Drum, Mox Opal exploding onto the battlefield. And this Affinity deck is quite a bit different than ones that you're maybe used to in Modern. They have a lot more card advantage, with draw spells, things like Thoughtcast and Fanatical Offering and Reckoner's Bargain, and pairing that with Cryogen Relic and Ichor Wellspring, really trying to play a little bit of a longer game and utilize that card advantage.
We're not in for a long one, perhaps here. These players playing lightning fast. We saw the
Yeah.
Sneaky Snacker as the Dredge mono red deck here puts it into play on turn 2, thanks to that highway robbery. But yeah, lightning fast play from both players here. And it looks like after that attack, a Gutter Snipe has entered play for Patrick, who's at 20. The Black Mage's Rod there, you saw, kind of does the same thing that Patrick's deck does. We're all about this non-creature pinging. And there we go. There's another Shaman coming down for Aaron. But he is down to just 12 life here, staring down a couple of power and play in addition to pinging from Patrick. I think it's just maybe one card in hand for Patrick, but if he has a couple of spells, it could really get things going. Although he's going to lose a couple of his creatures there to that spell.
Yeah, the shaman's kind of interesting. So that was actually what Aaron decided to do there. And there's actually a weird thing. So shaman, if we can get that up on the screen for the people at home, it is a 1 mana 1/1. You can sacrifice an artifact to deal 1 damage to each creature without flying. So what happened there was a wellspring that was cast, and then what Aaron decided to do was sacrifice the wellspring to the Krarklan shaman. But then in response to the own shaman ability resolving, you
Right.
can sacrifice another artifact to get the gutter snipe out of there as well.
Yep. Well explained. That's how you get up to 2 points of damage there. And it, amounts to a pretty important board wipe there. That said, it looks like a flame breather has arrived as well. So there is still some more pings from Patrick, but Patrick, it appears, is top decking. So down to 9 life is Aaron, but he's got a chance to get back in it. I think that fountain as well can get. Okay, well, never mind.
Yeah, I think there was a fire blast there from Patrick that just kind of ended the game in
That's a good. That's a good.
some
That's a
pretty
good one to have.
quick fashion. Yeah, that card has been ending games of Magic since the dawn of time.
I was going to say, I was sitting there looking at that fountain that Aaron had put into play, thinking, "Oh, there's a way back into this. There's a way back into this." Well, no, Patrick just ends it off the very very efficient burn spells, and that means that we can take you over to the modern seats where we have a deck that you know about, Amulet Titan on the left, but on the right, Jeffrey Carr is playing what we're calling Azorius Blink. Now, for those of you who were with Mason Clark and I yesterday morning, he was actually talking up this deck where you have Ephemerate making its way into some blue-white lists. And kind of, it's a controlling deck, but it's also got this whole other angle to it. So here it is in action from Jeffrey Carr as we join this game midway through. Looks like an amulet, but not too much else going on the Ryan side.
Yeah, deck is labeled as Azorius Blink, but as you mentioned, it is really like a control deck. It's playing a lot of elements that you're probably used to, things like Counterspell, Wrath of the Skies, Teferi Time Raveler, Force of Negation, has a couple of cantrips with Tune the Narrative to, fuel your Wrath of the Skies, stock up Prismatic Ending. But the threats, that's where it gets a little bit different here. So, yesterday in the standard seat, we saw a lot of Quantum Riddler in the VV Cauldron deck. And Jeffrey here is sporting 4 copies of that card in his main deck. Now we've seen a little bit of this in other future matches with like Raja Suleiman was playing an Esper Blink deck, and the Esper Blink deck is maybe utilizing more things and more creatures that have entered the battlefield triggers and ways to blink it. Really, the Riddler is just, we're pairing it with Ephemerate, but besides Riddler and Solitude, not really a ton of other things to blink, and just kind of utilizing that as sort of like a powerful control tool, interactive spell, card advantage kind of thing like that.
Yeah, the Ephemerate play can really just take over any kind of creature matchup very, very quickly out of the deck. So it adds just an entirely new angle to it. So on the other side, though, it looks like there are no responses as Ryan Bellamy is resolving Escape Shift out of his Amulet Titan deck with 2 amulets in place. So
I think this game is over.
we may be maybe not getting to see too much cool stuff out of the Azorius Blink deck.
Yeah, I mean, there's some Riddlers in the Exile Zone. Those got warped, so
That was
maybe
cool.
Jeffrey's saying like, oh well, if I get a turn, I can do something with those. So yeah, the land's gotten here. Teleria West, Shifting Woodland, Lotus Field. Presumably, this is going to be a kill. You can pick up the T West for Pact for I think Titan, get Titan, start copying with Mirror Pool. I'm fairly certain this will be a kill. So maybe we can see if we can take a look at. Looks like Popper is in the middle of Mulligans, so maybe we can head over there real quick. Yeah, okay. It looks like Popper is maybe about to start. Not 100% starting yet, but we presume that game is definitely over from the Amulet side. So let's get back to Popper.
We've talked through a lot of this Popper format and some of the cool cards you see. And I have to say, one of the ones I spotted in Aaron's hand there, Mirror Enforcer, the original Affinity card.
Talk to me.
Yeah, just beautiful stuff. So for those who don't know, Affinity, not only is it a deck archetype, it was once a mechanic that was actually on the cards in the deck
Oh yeah.
where your artifacts reduce the cost of other artifacts, and therefore you can just play them all out, including the terrifying Mirror Enforcer, which is a 7 mana affinity card that could be played for not 7 mana. Now, these days, you hear affinity and modern, etc. They don't actually play many affinity cards, or maybe in 2025, we're actually back to playing a few affinity cards after 10 years of not playing affinity cards. The point is, what some might call robots, what we're calling affinity, here in the Pauper format, it's got all the classic affinity cards. So Mirror
Oh yeah.
Enforcer, I hope, hits the board here.
I mean, you talk about classic. There's a great furnace in play, Corbin. You can't
That's
even play
right.
that card in modern.
No,
So
you cannot.
they don't let you do that. One thing that I was taking a look at during while we were switching games here is the sideboard for Patrick. Now, you would normally associate affinity being it like if basically if affinity is good, people will have sideboard cards for affinity. And you probably would imagine that the sideboard cards are very impactful. There's a lot of cards that destroy artifacts. And there's one card in particular, which is not present in Patrick's deck list, that is Gorilla Shaman. That is a popular card for these red decks, sometimes to utilize in post-board games, but that is not one that Patrick has. Actually, looking at the sideboard, there's no ways to remove an artifact, period, at all. So there's no shatters, no smash to smithereens, nothing like that. So, if he can stick something like a Mirror Enforcer, that might be in play for a while.
All right, well, here we go. We're going to get the action moving as Aaron fires off Galvanic Blast. Safe to say he has Metal Craft, so that'll do enough damage
I
to
think so.
remove that.
I think so. Yeah, so Flame Breather is going to hit the graveyard. That, as you pointed out, was a very powerful tool in previous games for Patrick to
Oh,
be able to. Oh
there we
boy!
go.
See, this
You
is. I mean, excuse me, Aaron basically just cast Shardless Agent into Crashing Footfalls. Think about
you
it.
are very right. What a time of modern that was. I missed that. Well, so Patrick is getting his own free creatures, the 2/1 flyers. They are not as powerful as it seems as Aaron's pair of 4/4s that he played for free. So I'm not sure. Now we do have cards like Fire Blast that can theoretically try to deal with them in a 1-for-1 basis. Is that aligned towards actually winning the game? That's maybe a different question. But Patrick does have a grip of cards here to go about trying to progress his game plan.
All right. So what do we draw here for Aaron? And the life totals they're close right now, but if you look at the battlefield, certainly Aaron definitely pretty far ahead in the race. And you almost have to wonder if Patrick has something like a Fire Blast. Do you consider pointing it at a Mirror Enforcer if you don't feel like you can kill Aaron next turn? Oh, Corbin, we're gonna see something real nice here. So refurbish Familiar, make sure
Yeah.
opponent discard a card. What if I wanted to discard a card anyways? And just discards that fiery temper, get a little bit of value.
That's
That's
funny.
actually pretty nice too, because Patrick could not discard the fiery temper at instant speed, so that's going to give him the opportunity to play more spells than he maybe thought he was going to be able
I
to.
was just looking at its hand and thinking, wow, he really is going to have to pay mana for these. But nope, there comes the familiar to help him out a little bit. And here comes a Faithless Looting. So I guess he would have got there regardless. But let's see. He's taken the hit. He's down to 5 life, but I guess he's got Aaron down to 10. In the last round, rather, I should say, we saw Patrick work out of a situation where we thought maybe the 15 power he was staring down was going to be too much to overcome, but it wasn't. So, this mono red deck's got a lot of play to it here.
Yeah, as good as Faithless Looting is at digging through your deck, it doesn't actually put you up cards. So at the end of all of this, Patrick, has a land and a Fire Blast. So if he goes land, flashback, looting, draw 2, discard 2, he only has 1 card left over. So can't keep something like 2 Fire Blasts in hand, because that's really what he needs, right?
Right.
Is double Fire Blast plus the flyer. But I guess that wouldn't even work because the familiar can at least block the snacker. So I think, presumably, Patrick. I don't think maybe he's thinking about chump block 1, chump block a Mirror Enforcer, Fire Blast the other one, take 3 damage, go down to 2, and maybe he can do something from there.
Well, not to make too much of a pun out of it, but I do think Patrick might be cooked in this one with just the 1 Fire Blast.
Okay, we'll work on it. We'll work on it. That's not bad, but I don't hate it.
All
He's
right,
gonna Fire Blast the
I'll take
mirror.
that as a win. I was expecting a groan. You know what? I'll take that. And Aaron will take that game, by the way, picking up the first win for his team, which was down 3-0 in the games. They are not what you want to see when you're in this spot of the tournament. But he does get him back on the board. Maybe that'll be the start of something. I think we are going to bring it back to the booth here for just a second before we head back down to Modern, because it has been some back and forth gaming through here. We've got Amulet up a game is now going to be on the draw. So we'll see how that one plays out as Jeffrey Carr's Azorius Blink deck that we've been talking about. We do want to catch an action. We didn't get to see it do much in that first one, but maybe in this next one we will. But I'll tell you, the Popper gaming we've been watching today, Devin, it's been pretty fun.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I really have not played that much Popper. There was a format that I played a ton way back in the day, like
Mhm.
when I really first started getting into Magic Online, not a lot of money in the account,
Yeah.
easy to get into Popper. And I played like a mono black control deck with Crypt Rats and Pestilence and all that kind of
You,
stuff.
you know, I
But
started Popper with the Storm deck back in
okay.
the day. The like bounce all of your permanent Storm, just probably the most toxic Popper deck you could imagine. I think most of it ended up getting banned, but it was a way to play Magic, and I had fun.
Yeah, no, Popper's fantastic. A lot of good gameplay. I've been loving what we're seeing out of Popper. But yeah, Modern is a format that we haven't really had a lot of time to get to. So
Yeah.
hopefully players are just about ready. We can get you back down there in a second. But looking at this matchup in particular, this Azorius Blink deck, I wanted to mention the sideboard here because there's some interesting things that Jeffrey can do in the postboard games. It's labeled as Azorius Blink, but don't let it fool you. There is a Watery Grave and a Shadowy Backstraight in the mana base to support 3 Psychic Frog and 3 Thoughtseize in the sideboard here for Jeffrey. So
Wow.
Jeffrey has kind of an option to maybe board into, almost certainly going to want those Thoughtseizes against the Amulet combo deck. But I wonder if he wants to go towards something like Psychic Frog as an early threat that he can deploy, where you kind of do this kind of sort of Delver style thing where you just play an early threat and then start protecting it with a bunch of counter spells, while the Psychic Frog is getting you more cards to be able to answer all of the things that you need to from the Amulet deck.
Psychic Frog out of the sideboard, I think, is a really interesting choice, right? We've seen plenty of Psychic Frog main decks where that is sort of the game plan A of what they want to do. Bringing it out of the sideboard after your opponent thinks perhaps you're just on a much lower creature plan, at least in that kind of creature, is an interesting way to go about it. I'm not sure necessarily against Amuletide if it changes too much in what the sideboarding would look like.
Well,
But
there it
you
is.
you you called it. There it is, the turn to Psychic Frog.
Yeah, I will say Psychic Frog not as good against Blocks Diamond in the O3 over there, but
Yeah.
I mean Jeffrey can discard a couple of cards, get the Grazer out of there for a turn, and then have that threat looming over the next couple of turns. But Ryan does get a pretty easy free block here, at least on the first attack, and kind of put Jeffrey to the test. Like, do you want to discard the cards? And I imagine Jeffrey probably would want to do that because you want to get that frog through eventually.
Yeah, and it does get, this gives Ryan the space to just cast this Malevolent Rumblings, which has been one of the Modern Horizons 3 additions to the format that took a little bit to come through, I would say. But it's been really powerful in several different decks, including this one. But just if you're Bellamy, you feel pretty good. You've just been able to go ideal turn one into pretty safe setup turns. You're under no pressure. And now you just kind of, after hopefully sculpting your hand, kind of think about, okay, well, now how do I start working through the counterplay that Jeffrey might have?
Yeah, I don't know if you got a glimpse of. Okay, I was gonna say, well, there now you got a glimpse of it. Jeffrey has one copy of Elish Norn, Mother of Machines, in the sideboard, and that card is lights out against Amulet. It
Yes,
stops
it is.
all of their triggers. But you see here, it is a 5 mana card, and unfortunately for Jeffrey, does not play a third land, so it's going to have to discard that Elish Norn to the Psychic Frog to get past that Grazer, as we mentioned earlier. But yeah, if that was something maybe Jeffrey wanted to play towards, but without land number 3, respectfully, has to go ahead and get rid of that.
All right, looks like Force of Negation there, taking out a Spelunking. So no enters untapped effects for Ryan in play right now.
And you see Jeffrey really getting just as much, wants to try to get as much value off of this frog as possible. Prismatic Ending, getting that token out of the way. And I can't quite tell. That's a Thoughtseize. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Thoughtseize and Ryan had 3 Primeval Titans. So, well, we got one of them, one's
Well,
down.
yeah, I mean, we talked about him getting to set up, and this was the other piece he needed, and there it was waiting on top of the deck with that spelunking.
And Ryan chooses to legend roll a Boseiju here to be able to cast a
Yeah.
Rumble.
So that
So,
that gives him what he really probably was looking for here, right? I believe that is a bounce land. So now you seem to be well set up for next turn, going up to 6 mana.
yep, so there's Oh, okay, yeah, he put the Boseiju into play off of the Spelunking. I was confused. So Boseiju
Sure.
was put into play off Spelunking and then land for turn is the Gruul Turf. Makes sense.
Yeah, Spelunking, again, we talk about the cards that this deck has picked up over the years. Just kind of an innocuous uncommon out of Lost Caverns of Ixalan that happens to be amulets. I mean, not necessarily 5 through 8, depending on how many you play or whatever, but additional copies of amulet in your deck.
Yeah, the frog's going to get jumped here to not get jump blocked by the spawn token, and Jeffrey really looking for a counter spell here. Has the 2 mana available to play it, but Jeffrey's deck list does have 4 copies of subtlety as well, so has plenty of answers to Primeval Titan, but he's gonna need to find one this turn, or presumably Ryan's just gonna if that Titan resolves. I don't know if it's lethal 100% this turn, but can imagine it's probably going to be very hard to beat if that Titan does hit the battlefield.
Yeah, and the problem is even if you do have a counter spell, again, you're putting very little life total pressure on Ryan here. So he'll just run out another Primeval Titan next turn.
Yeah, there is still 2 of them.
And
Thought
unfortunately,
seeing 3 of them was a
yeah,
little
unfortunately, for Jeffrey at least, the first one just resolves, so that second one may not even be relevant. So now we are in that. I do want to stick with this for a minute. We can watch at least see how this plays out. We
Oh,
don't know
yeah,
what
okay.
Jeffrey has in hand to try to interact here, but we see a Lotus Field, another land picked up here for Bellamy. We pick up Boseiju back to hand. We start all of the sort of shenanigans here, and a second Titan has hit the battlefield.
Sir, a second Titan is at the battlefield. So we can haste one of them. Okay, I'm just gonna double check because pretty sure, yeah, we have a battlements. Okay, so battlements is the haste land of choice. We're gonna echoing deeps here with the vestige. I think the battlements got milled, and that's why we decided to echoing deeps.
Okay.
Got it. Okay.
All right. Well, here we go. The subtlety has arrived from Jeffrey. That gets rid of one of the primeval titans.
Okay. So no haste attack this turn. And if Jeffrey can maybe answer the second Titan, potentially
Sure.
has
I,
sort of managed the
I'm showing my
battlefield.
age here, but my initial thought was, oh yeah, we're gonna go get the Boros Garrison and the land that gives +2/+0 and haste and double strike, and it'll be 16 damage out of a Titan. But it's not that year anymore.
No, not quite. They still have the haste land, right? The
Yeah.
battlements does give haste, but yeah, no more garrison slayer stronghold. Remember there was that one time where Titan played the garrison slayers, and then they had the double strike land. So they would
That's the
like,
one I was thinking of. Yeah.
yeah,
I
plus
don't
two and then
remember the
double
name
strike.
either.
I'm sure chat's gonna tell us, but I also can't remember the double strike land's name.
Oh, I said subtlety. I apologize. Yes, you are. Chat is it does have our back. It is solitude. Sun Home. That's right.
Ah, the Sun Home,
Fortress of the
yes.
Legion or something like
There
that.
you go. That sounds like a Boros land.
Yeah. All right.
This
Well, this one has turned
is
out pretty interesting here because there is a Titan in play, but the game is not over, and Jeffrey is making attacks, drawing cards, has mana open. So we'll see what he wants to pull the trigger on next here.
Jeffrey did find the Riddler. Now there was an interesting decision there from Jeffrey. So Jeffrey drew. So it was Riddler 1 card in hand. Warp the Riddler, drew 2 cards. So drawing 2, one of them was an ephemerate. Actually, did have the option to discard one of them to the frog. So then when he ephemerated the Riddler, he would have drawn 2 more, but decided to keep both in hand. So that signifies to me that the 2 cards in hand that Jeffrey found are indeed good. Question:
Yeah.
are they good enough?
Well, another Titan has arrived, so this is
The
just
fourth
not
Titan.
like the idea of I'll just get rid of the Titans and go from there, is not exactly panning out for Jeffrey, because now you're still going to have a Titan attack trigger on top of this. So we're deep into the part of the game where Amulet Titan is sort of off of just point A, point B, point C with what I get. And now we're going to see deeper into the bag of tricks.
Well, hear me out, Corbin. You said you can't answer all of them. Well, now if you answer the two that are on the battlefield, Ryan literally can't play another one.
It's
That's
true.
that's
Yeah.
all. That's all. That's it. That's all of them. So now I don't know if Jeffrey can answer all of them, but we'll have to see. I'm guessing probably not.
All right, is that the mirror pool that hit the battlefield there as well?
That was the
Yeah,
mirror
if
pool.
we can get mirror pool pulled up on screen, that card has a whole lot of words that do a lot of very good things for the Amulet Titan deck when you are at this point of the game in particular. You can copy your spells should you need to. You can copy a creature should you need to, and that often comes up as well.
I'm curious, and I mean, maybe if Ryan does win this match and we get another interview, I want to see, because I know Ryan's played a ton of Amulet, and he's like, this is basically the deck that he plays. I wonder if he's ever mirror pulled an instant or sorcery. I wonder in what circumstances that would come up. But
Scape shift, perhaps.
yeah, copy escape shift to play around counter spells,
That,
maybe.
that was what I was thinking of. That's the
Okay.
only real thing I can think of. But yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, and we do remember that there's an Echoing Deeps in the battlefield. That is a copy of Hanweir Garrison. So that was a land that got milled over early on from a Malevolent Rumble. So that is the haste land. So if you're wondering if Ryan can haste, he definitely can. Excuse me, with that Echoing Deeps.
There we go. I was going to say, I wondered if we might be getting there. Jeffrey does extend the hand. Amulet Titan goes, like we said, pretty deep into the bag of tricks, but it's got deep pockets, does that deck. So Ryan Bellamy picks up the match, gives one over to his team. I think our Popper match is over as well. It went over to Affinity 2-1.
So you know what that means, Corbin?
Down. Yeah.
It's time for Vivi. That's what that means. It's Vivi time.
It's Vivi, and it's up a game on Demir midrange from Dominic Delozio in the right. Miguel Chavez on the left.
Wait, Vivi up a game? Weird.
Hard to believe it. Now, we're pretty deep into this one by the looks of it. No creatures in play for Dominic, but a pretty large graveyard on Miguel's side, and it's not underneath there's no cauldron or anything like that. So as it turns out, 13 to 15 on life totals. Steam Core Scholars being the only prominent card right now. A couple of Vivis in hand, it looks like, for Miguel.
Yeah, in terms of the Demir deck list, because this is kind of something that you want to take a look at and see if what. Obviously, Vivi is the tier 0 deck. If you're playing standard right now, you need to have some sort of cohesive plan against them. Whether or not that plan is good is yet to be determined. But in terms of the cards that Dominic has that are that I could imagine are specifically targeting this matchup, there's one Tishana's Tidebinder in the main. And then looking at the sideboard, there is one copy of Annul. That one seems pretty good against stuff like Props and Cauldron. There is an additional copy of Tishana's Tidebinder, 2 Strategic Betrayal, which is an edict that also gets the graveyard, and then has access to some counter spells as well in the Gate Spell Pierce. So, is respecting it as a decent number of cards, but again, it's, whether or not those cards will show up in time is yet to be determined. But Curiosity, I mean, if that one remains in the battlefield, that one can certainly close things out.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is the Demir deck has a lot of flexibility after sideboarding and just kind of as a strategy, because there's really, some of its cards are better than others, but it's not like any one of its cards is crucial to the deck in the way that a Vivi or Cauldron are to, the Vivi Cauldron deck. So he does have the Tidebinder here for the Vivi trigger. So this is huge. Yeah.
There you go. That'll turn off the Vivi. So this is a Fire Magic for 1. And I believe that's going to be finishing off the Curiosity, but that's going to come back. So still, Curiosity in play with 2 attackers on the following turn. And Miguel doesn't look like he has a ton, although I think he picked up a draw spell. I think it was a
Well,
Winter Knight that got picked up this turn.
yeah, I think so too. So I think he's got Winter Knight, Vivian, something. So he's got 5 mana untapped right now, and it seems like that may end up being the key point here, right? Because Vivi would take you down to 2 mana. You need to then cast a spell before you're even able to get anything off of it. Winter Knight Stories costs 3. So unless that other card in hand is a land, then it wouldn't be enough. And then, in fact, we just see Miguel pass the turn back.
Interesting. And there was a decision there for Miguel. So the land in hand, I couldn't tell if it was a tap land or an untapped land, because Miguel had the option, if it was an untapped land, to just play a new VV, Legend Rule keep the new one. The new one would not be locked under a tie binder, then could have played the Winter Knight, drawn a couple of cards, got a VV trigger, but decided, I think rightfully so, to decide to hold back the VV instead, because now you can get a chump block out of it, play the new VV, prevent Dominic from drawing one extra card off of a curiosity. But yeah, Miguel doesn't really have a lot going on here.
Well, and yeah, I guess we'll have to see if he's able to really spend any mana here. But Dominic was able to pick up another card. So he's going to have a good attack here. But let's see, there is mana coming out.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we're going to remove one of the creatures here.
So it actually wasn't a land; it was a barrage. I think
Yeah.
it was it was hard to get a look at it. So the hand, it looks like, was Barrage Prof or Barrage Winter Knight VV. So I think what Miguel is going to be planning on is setting up Barrage to kill the Preacher, chump block one of the 3-power creatures, and then only give Dominic one extra card. Maybe rip land 6 to be able to play a new VV and utilize that Winter Knight Stories, and maybe can keep going from there. Although I guess without a Cauldron, there's a limit on exactly what Miguel can do next turn. It looks
Yeah, it
like we're
looks like
heading a
these
Judge
players
Call, maybe.
it looks like they're going to figure out where they're at in this one. So, yeah, I mean, this is a really this is one of the more interesting games. We talk a lot about the Vivi Cauldron deck for its power level, and it is powerful. Obviously, it is by far the most powerful deck in the format. But for what it's worth, games like this, once people at least have sideboarded against it and know what they're up against, do play out fairly interesting. I was around for days of the top deck being, say, Aetherworks Marvel, and that deck was not interesting to watch at all. In fact, it
No.
was the opposite. It was terrible. They spin the wheel repeatedly. GP Mirror Finals. It wasn't great. These games tend to be more interesting. Tashana's Tidebinder targeting Vivi, but now if they remove the Tidebinder, then it can unlock the Vivi. There's some more interesting counterplay here. Even if at the end of the day, Vivi is just clearly the best deck in the format. At least at this point, no one has figured it out. There's the Spotlight series next week that maybe
I'll be there.
will draw people who have been holding tech or anything like that. But I think it is more likely that we're just going to see a massive amount of this deck and some plans for the mirror.
Yeah, I mean, you put it very, very well. The games that don't end on turn 3 or turn 4, those games are kind of fun. Where, like, here it's sort of, there's a lot more nickel and diming and trying to figure out like how to sequence my spells, what removal spell do I play this turn. But yeah, the game, like, basically the games where you don't just go like 2-drop, discard VV, Cauldron, do the thing. The games can get a little interesting. The deck does have a significant amount of play to it outside of those completely absurd busted draws.
Yeah. Well, and the Demir deck is basically the one of the heaviest interaction decks in any format in recent years, because that's what all of its cards does. So it's pretty fun to watch. But here we go. We're catching back up. The removal spell does hit the Tidebinder. The Tidebinder does hit the graveyard. The trigger from the Preacher does resolve. And now, crucially, the Vivi in play for Miguel has been unlocked.
Yeah, so I think what happened there is it looks like Miguel, instead of chump blocking with VV, decided to just kill the Tidebinder and just take the hit. That was the other option, because then he doesn't have to commit 3 mana to the other VV next turn. But we'll have to see. Still know about that Winter Knight, so that could be a start to this. Yeah, there's the Winter
Yeah,
Knight.
there we go. And this is, I mean, Dominic has mana open, a grip of cards, and has allowed the Winter Knight to happen. So it's hard to tell if Dominic is sitting on, some not so good cards, and this is just going to be a huge turn for Miguel here, or if it's
Well,
all going to kind of run into one piece of interaction now that Miguel is already tapped down a little bit.
well, Corbin, Miguel discarded a VV and drew a Cauldron.
Time to find out.
So time to show me what you got, Dominic. Gotta have something. Okay. We're thinking about responding.
showing the team the hand. This is probably not great. Now,
Yeah, I mean, if there's no kill spell, we're probably done here, but he's tapping mana, so we're thinking about responding. Kill
it's a
spell?
Drowner. This is interesting. So the
Okay.
Drowner will tap the Vivi. It won't untap. It's not Trickster. It doesn't remove the abilities from the
Yeah.
Vivi.
I mean, it might make it a little harder for Miguel to kill this turn because now he needs to find the Wild Ride or set up a sequence where it goes, maybe Tursa into profs because Dominic's only at 9, so it doesn't need a ton if he can find, well, there's the
There's the
Tursa.
Tursa. And there goes the Vivi and a land to the graveyard. We'll see what we hit here. I mean, it could whiff. He could end up not getting there.
Yeah, because there should be one more VV activation. Actually, no. 3, 6. Trying to remember. So we haven't flashed back the Winter Knight yet, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so there's still Winter Knight the Grave. So we have one more VV activation for 3 mana because Miguel used the first one to cast the Tursa.
So by tapping down the Vivi, you mess up the Harmonize as well.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So that was actually a very heads up play there for Dominic.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably his only point of interaction. So he may as well use it on that turn. I believe technically that Vivi should also be stunned, but
yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to matter because I think this game is going to end either on Miguel's turn or on Dominic's next turn, one way or the other.
Yeah, because if we do start looking back to Dominic's turn and start counting up that damage, I don't know. It's going to be interesting here, but it looks like we're actually just going to move to combat. We're going to get a Tursa attack, which means a Tursa trigger because, as we've talked about, Miguel has a fully stacked graveyard. So, okay, choose your doom.
Choose wisely.
Yeah.
That was
Barrage.
I think that was the best hit.
So hit.
Remember, because the other VV has 2 uses of the mana because the Cauldron gives it a second instance of the mana ability. Why that works, don't ask me why. But it can make 3 mana inside of combat. So now, because Miguel hit the Barrage, you can actually cast that before blocks. Maybe you can hit the Soul Stone, give Dominic the option to double block. I think I like this better, just letting Dominic go to blocks and then likely using the Barrage to clean up the Preacher, I think is what Miguel's plan is.
What a hit, by the way, for Miguel.
Yeah, that was a good one. So the token chump blocks the Tursa, and then second main phase you can kill the Preacher, and then on board there is 2 Soul Stones and a Flood Pits. That is only 8 damage with Miguel at 10. So theoretically can get an extra turn. But there's 2 Enduring Curiosities that have come back and are no longer creatures. So you'd be letting Dominic draw 6 cards there, and presumably Dominic's going to find at least one piece of interaction in 6 cards.
You got to feel like you dodged some kind of bullet there if you're Dominic and you actually get on tap after this. But
I don't know if he dodged a bullet. I think he dodged a wrench.
That's a good point. It's a start. It's the beginning of the training montage for sure. All right. Well, there goes the Drowner. So he can't shuffle away that Vivi now when he untaps.
Yeah, that's pretty big. And that gets another counter on the Vivi, another damage. And now, more importantly, that actually is 2 less cards for Dominic. Right, yeah, because next turn, like Dominic doesn't have the capability to present lethal here. But given how last turn the only piece of interaction that Dominic had was that Flood Pit Strata? Because you would imagine if Dominic had a removal spell like a Shoot the Sheriff, probably would have used that instead of the Flood Pits. So, given that, now Miguel probably, maybe assumes that there's not another removal spell in Dominic's hand. So, cutting him off of getting access to more cards maybe makes it less likely that he draws one off of those curiosity triggers. Well, there's some nice basics. I don't know where they're from, but they're nice basics. I think those are the pixel secret layer ones.
Yep, those are you can choose truly anything for your basics these days.
Oh yeah. Whatever your heart desires.
Or whichever basic lands you find next to the draft pile, whichever.
Yeah, I mean you could. You could.
All right, is this a second preacher then for Dominic?
Now Soulstone getting in there, so we're gonna hit for 6, draw 4. And then
Oh, that's it.
Dominic has already played a land of return, but has access to 4 mana. So big draw steps here. Do we find a kill spell? I couldn't. Dominic's holding his hand close to his chest, so I can't quite tell.
That is a lot. Sorry, yeah. So Soulstone hits give him a ton of cards here to pass back with.
And he just says, go. Didn't find a kill spell for the VV. Oh my goodness. That is disastrous.
Yeah, that's a grip of cards to not get anywhere on. That's a rough development for Dominic because while you were able to dodge that wrench last turn, when your opponent is untapping with the Cauldron and the Vivi already in play, I fail to see how you're likely to get out of this one. And it begins with a harmonized or with a Winter Night Stories.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Tishana's Tidebinder, but he had already let the VV trigger resolve, so that's not in the cards anymore. Yeah, very unfortunate there for Dominic. Draw step and then 4 additional cards off of the Curiosity, so 5 looks at a kill spell. And I mean, if you look at Dominic's deck list, if I want to pull it up real quick, there are Tragic Trajectory, which I guess wouldn't have worked there, but 3 Bitter Triumph, 2 Shoot the Sheriff, and then post board. I guess there's 1 Withering Torment. So and the Betrayals as well. So had some options, but just unable to cobble together that kill spell.
All right. Well, Miguel's taking a deep look through his graveyard here, trying to figure out how do we close this thing out now that things seem to be going the way we want them to go? Because there's a lot on the line here. Remember, we are at a 10K Team Trios event right now in Lansing, the NRG Championship Series. And this is the final round of Swiss. Both of these teams trying to give themselves a shot at either the top 8 or, of course, just the best possible finish they can have at 5-1 and team records of 4-1-1.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Miguel bricked off of that Winter Night Stories. He resolved it, drew 3, discarded 2, and then immediately went to combat attacking with the Tursa. So, you would imagine if he had any other spell to cast, given the fact that he had access to 18 mana, potentially more with the Cauldron. So didn't find any spells that he wanted to play pre-combat. And now Dominic has a decision where do you want to block? Now, if you block the Tursa, it's not a trade because Miguel has the opportunity to do this to make it a 4/4, but you do prevent 4 damage coming across, which maybe makes it less likely you die to a VV. But again, if Miguel had spells, he probably would have played them pre-combat. So you maybe at this point you just have to hope that Miguel bricks, because based on going to combat with the Tursa, it kind of seemed like Miguel did brick.
It seems like he could, especially, I mean, gosh, that stun counter coming in relevant here. And all right, now we're going to flash in an Enduring Curiosity.
Okay, so now if Miguel doesn't have anything, this is lethal. The Soulstone dies and you have 7 damage. I guess not because of the Mako. We can chump block with that.
I think there's an End of the Floodmaw on hand as well.
Yeah, I think it's Into the Floodmaw, second Cauldron. Okay, now the question is, do you Floodmaw now to not get counterspelled?
Knowing that your opponent would have counterspelled had they had one.
Yeah, because he didn't counter the Winter Night Stories, but could draw counterspell. It's tough. A lot of times these Dimir decks don't play a lot of hard counters. In Dominic's sideboard, there are 2 negates, so maybe he could have boarded those in to be able to fight over
Yeah.
against the flood mob, but just decides to take the safe route, which does make sense.
This game has gone on far longer than I think
Oh
most of us
yeah,
might have anticipated a few turns ago.
yeah. 2 turns ago, I thought it was over that turn, and here we are 2 turns later. So
All right. Well, somehow the game is not ended if you're Dominic now. You didn't have the counter spell, but you have now untapped into just a mess of mana and cards. And your opponent's at 4 life. So what do we do? Well, okay, I
ooh,
guess Spyglass Siren is
what do
what
we do? We hit a spell off of this map.
yeah.
Okay, big map here. Does he
Yep.
find a
This
spell?
will allow him to take a look at the top card,
That's a
and
spell,
then we'll
Corbin.
get to draw that card on the attack thanks to the Enduring Curiosity trigger.
Well, he won't get the draw card because that'll be lethal damage.
Yep, there you go.
That trigger won't even resolve. Oh, there's off screen. Okay, so you and I can't see it, and the folks at home can't see. There's a marauding Mako off screen. That was the Mako that he hit off of the Terse. I forgot about that. So that is
Okay,
a
so you're
chump
right.
blocker.
It's a chump block in the end.
Yep. I couldn't see it because it was off camera a little bit, but yeah, there was the Mako that was hit off of the Tersa. And again, I mean, Dominic didn't have a kill spell last turn. Didn't draw one this turn. So
I
it's really
don't think there's any Winter Night stories, but now there's just 2 big attackers.
right.
So you've got 2 blockers, at least as it currently stands, if you're Dominic.
It's really interesting how we thought the game was going to be over because, and I think we maybe just assumed that one player would draw a relevant spell. You had that turn where Miguel
Right.
resolved Winter Night, bricked. You had that turn where Dominic drew 4 off the Curiosity, bricked, and it's sort of like this. This is just where we are now, you know.
Maybe more Tursa activations than you see ever.
Yeah.
Game does not often last long after they start doing Tursa stuff. But here we go. That's just a land off of it. That's not going to get you anywhere.
I think Miguel may have picked up another copy of Floodmaw. So I think what maybe Miguel wants to do here is Floodmaw the Soulstone before blocks. That would put Dominic down to 5. And then the Spyglass Siren can jump in front of the VV, but then you can just use the Cauldron to make it a lethal attack. So
No. Dominic's got Dominic has a Curiosity in hand. So can
yeah,
make another blocker.
can at least do that.
Or has so we know about that because and of course Miguel knows about that as well.
Yeah, Floodmaw's a weird card, but you can actually, if you just choose to bounce a creature, it doesn't say bounce a non-land creature, just return it a creature. So
Right.
you can bounce the Soulstone as long as you're not gifting them a fish. But here's the Curiosity. So but wait. Okay, so we blocked first and then played the Curiosity. Got it.
Mhm.
Okay. So no Floodmaw cast, but if Miguel does have that Floodmaw, then he can just use it similar again to bounce the Curiosity.
And then Dominic's in an even worse spot.
Well, now it's interesting because Dominic played the Reef last turn. So Reef plus Curiosity, those are 2 lethal attackers. Miguel's at 4.
Right.
And Miguel doesn't have any blockers here.
So if Dominic sees this and, because Dominic also has a ton of cards in hand, right? So there's a lot of choices if you're Dominic, and you may decide, well, what if I go for this line? They have it.
Well,
They have another bounce spell, something like that. It doesn't work out. Or do you just tap out or tap down anyway and go for it and try to win? Does look
yeah, the
like
thing
that's what we're
is,
doing.
if Miguel had a second removal spell, he would have used it that turn to clear the extra blocker because
Exactly.
you go clear 2 blockers, 1 left over. That chump blocks the VV. The Terse is still lethal. So because how last turn played out, Dominic knew that Miguel didn't have another removal spell, and there you go, Dominic taking game number 2.
That was great. Like, that is exactly the line that all of these players are going through, right? As you just go back and forth, and each of those players surely thought on those turns, well, my opponent's probably going to get it here. They don't need much. They're probably going to have it. But instead, the game just kept going. And then it comes down to, if you're Dominic, you just try to figure out what your opponent does have. And you can do that by figuring out by what they don't have. And in that case, you laid it out. You can determine that your opponent does not have a way to punish you for this attack. You can go for it. If it works out, you get there. It did work out. He got there. And now we're going to be heading into a game 3 here in round 7 between these 2 teams. Vivi Cauldron on the left, Demir Midrange on the right, Miguel Chavez, Dominic DeLazio with everything on the line.
Yeah, and these players wasting no time shuffling up for game number 3. I don't know if we can get production to check on the round clock, but I can't imagine there is much time left given how fast these players are shuffling and drawing their
Yeah,
hands.
we'll we'll try to keep up with them here, but it's going to be good luck trying to finish this one in time. I think both of these decks are theoretically capable of very fast starts. They have, it seems, 8 minutes on top of time, which was already called. So we're probably looking at about 5 minutes here, and Miguel starting things off with a mulligan.
Yeah, these players had a time extension, so 8 minutes left in their time extension. So, I mean, 8 minutes is a decent amount of time. And as you mentioned, both of these decks have the capability of having extremely fast starts. The Demir deck can just kind of curve out, one drop into bat into Kaido if you have one of those draws. Obviously, we're familiar with how powerful and how ridiculous some of the VV Cauldron draws can be. So, it's really going to be a question of who is on the play, which is Miguel, because Miguel did lose that last game. But Miguel is on a mulligan here. And yeah, just kind of see, if sort of Dominic on the draw maybe can handle the aggressive start, kind of pair that into an early curiosity and maybe ride that to victory.
So I do want to note, chat's actually been talking about kind of the pace of play, and then we're talking about the clock. Team events are notorious for the final match of the team event taking much longer than the first two did,
Yes.
because there are 6 people playing this match right now. That's what you should understand.
Yeah, I mean, there it does get to a point where you kind of have to like if a lot of your this is where the kind of the experience sets in because a lot of your teammates maybe want to give you a ton of input on each individual turn and each
Right.
individual decision. There's definitely a period of time where if there's a very close decision, really not sure what to do, then that sort of a conversation can be had. But in these early turns, you want to maybe do that a little bit less and try to save that energy for
Mhm.
those later turns where it matters a little bit more.
Yeah, one of the most famous trios, the Peach Garden Oath, Redux team, Huey Jensen's team back in the day, just the best Magic players in the world, and they would basically sit behind each other and not say a word until their teammate asked them for input, and then they'd have their conversation and their input. But you really don't want to mess up the player, because that player, in all likelihood, knows the deck better than you do, because it's the deck they've been playing all day.
Yeah, there's a flow. You don't want to interrupt their flow.
Especially when they're trying to play incredibly quick here
Yeah.
at the end.
All right, Bat's going to clear the torch. That's the removal spell left over. There is still Flood Maw that can unlock it for a turn, but then if Flood Maw happens, you can just replay the Bat and kind of move about your way. I love this. You're talking about time fetching with the Fable Passage and then passing, letting Miguel take his turn while you're fetching. Beautiful, beautiful sequence there for Dominic. Every second counts.
I love that. I do love that.
Because I mean, these players are in a position where a draw eliminates them both.
Yeah.
Right. This was a win and in match for top eight. And if this match goes to an unintentional draw, both of these teams, I think, well, that's not true. Miguel's
Well, it's
team is,
devastating for Delazio's team.
yeah,
Yeah.
Miguel's team is good with the draw because they're X and one. I forgot there was a pair down. So, yeah, Miguel's team, they can take a draw. They don't really mind. But, obviously a loss would knock them out.
Well, this game, both players might have been hoping for a fast one. We didn't get it. It's turn 4 heading into turn 5, and there are no non-land permanents in play.
Yeah, I mean, Dominic's hands looks pretty good. I think I saw 2 Tidebinders, a Curiosity, so it
Just
has a lot of options
Well,
here.
the curiosity on this instep is very big to get to get something going. And in fact, it's actually going to force a torch to the tower, sacrificing the soul cauldron to pay the bargain cost to get the extra damage.
Yeah, that was the torch that was known because the Flood Mob bounced the bat to get the torch back.
So I
So,
mean, that answers the cauldron, I guess. This is pretty decent looking if you're Dominic. That was just one card out of your hand at instant speed, and now you get to come back with another bat to take away one of these last 2 cards. It's a barrage and then into the flood moth. So okay, the Demir player looking like they're in a good spot here.
yeah, I mean, Miguel's basically on empty at this point. Has that into the Flood Mob, but that's not a permanent answer to the bat. Just draws a starting town for turn, and Dominic's hand is stacked. There's still 2 Tidebinders, and I believe another Curiosity as well. So
Just
Yeah,
gotta try to close this one out while he can.
question for Dominic here. Do you want to main phase the curiosity? Um,
No.
Probably. I mean, you're just
I
gonna
can
trade for you're just gonna trade for the flood mob, but I think I'm okay with that.
All right,
Okay.
Flood Maw just goes on the bat. I was gonna say, I think you gotta just make a decision and move through it quickly. You just need to cast these
Oh
cards
yeah.
in your hand. It almost doesn't matter what order you cast them in, given how few cards your opponent has, but you do need to get them cast. So the Riddler is coming down here. That's gonna get
Oh.
Tidebindered.
Yeah, I couldn't see them off screen. We
Yeah.
this whole time we were thinking like, oh, Miguel's hand is, Miguel's on empty, but there's two Riddlers in exile. I did forget about those.
Yeah, slow, right? That wasn't helping him on that third and fourth turn, but now he's able to get one down. Now it runs immediately into the Tidebinder, but at least as a blocker. And in this game, that's an important place to be. Now the barrage is going to go underneath the bat. So it is officially 0 cards in hand for Miguel, access to another Riddler off screen. And removal on the first one unlocks a Tidebinder attack.
Yeah, that's big. But now the question is, does Dominic have an answer for the second Riddler? Because that presumably is going to come into play here.
Right.
We're lining up some mana. I was going to say we don't have to
Yeah,
think too much about the mana tapping.
keep the mana open. You obviously can most likely looking for into the Flood Maw or something here. Oh, that was quick. Look at that. All right. FOMO is going to
Yeah.
pitch a Scholar.
That's two more cards. Oh my goodness, the Riddler. Every single time we've seen this card on camera this weekend, it's been completely ridiculous.
It sure has.
Just in spots like this where the Cauldron deck is so good at emptying its hand, and it just so frequently there's not only is it good at emptying its hand, but half of the deck says draw a card on it. And every single time you cast one of those, excuse me, to draw an extra card, it's just this just massive, massive swing. On top of the fact that it's just also a 4/6 flyer.
All right. So there was a shoot the sheriff, though, for Dominic. So the second Riddler gone as well. Just kind of the FOMO left. But man, Miguel saw so many cards right there to keep this thing going. And that is time
Okay.
for these players.
Yeah, I saw that Dominic started to pause for a little bit there, and I kind of imagined that's what happened. So now time, which means Dominic is turn 0, Miguel's going to be turn 1. So Miguel's going to get 3 turns after this. Dominic's going to get 2. Remember, Miguel's team wants a draw. They are in top 8 with the draw. Dominic's team has to win this match. So the question is, can Dominic deal 14 damage in 2 combat steps?
Seems
Don't
unlikely.
know
I'm
how
not going to
easy that's
lie.
gonna be, yeah.
Because even if you have Tidebinder here, which I believe we know he even does, that's 4. Then that's going to leave you needing to do 10 on the next one. All right, it's a Mako for Chavez.
Yeah, I mean, Dominic can deploy a Tidebinder end step, that's 4 damage. So in his first combat, assuming you can clear blockers, that's 4 getting through, that puts Miguel down to 10,
You then
and
need
then you
2
have
more 2
yeah, you
more
have
3 power
4
creatures
power.
added.
I don't even know if that's possible.
I don't think he's going to get there, especially not since another Riddler has entered play. And even though it runs into Tidebinder, you might be feeling okay about the long game here if you Dominic, but you're not going to get it done in time. At
Right.
least if we understand exactly where we are at in this game
Yeah, I
with
mean, I
life
think
total.
if Dominic just had maybe like 2 or 3 more minutes, like this turn he could spend killing the creatures, getting in, and yeah, I don't think Dominic's going to be able to deal 14 over the course of two combat phases.
Brutal spot for him. This is tournament magic, though. This is what it comes down to. The clock is, and we mentioned it with team events, it can be even more of a concern. But also, I mean, that last game just kept going and going and going when we thought it was over several times in both directions. So just a very long match here, especially, end of a day, end of a long weekend. These players are playing for a lot here. So even if this goes to a draw, of course, Delazio's team, they're getting points, they're getting cash. It's not nothing, just like this Kaido is not nothing, but it might
Mhm.
not be everything they were hoping for.
Yeah, Kaido can lock down the Riddler for a couple of turns, attack with both. I mean, it's also just not clear because I think there is a Soul Stone in Miguel's mana base, so there's the situation where again like given more time this game would be a lot more intricate where like
Yeah.
this turn you would have to weigh, do I attack with Tidebinder, do I hold it back to block the Soul Stone, You have the Restless Reef as well. Presumably, you would just want to protect the Kaido in that instance, but yeah, kill spell for the Mako too, man. Yeah, Dominic kind of, like I said, Dominic had all the tools he needed if he just had just a couple more minutes. So there's an attack for 4. Miguel goes to 10. And I mean, technically, there's 10 damage in play, right? There's the
Oh.
Kaido, the Reef, and the Tishanas. If Miguel just forgets that he has a soul stone, but I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, you Dominic, you did everything you could do here.
There's 2 soul stones actually.
Yeah, he's gonna fire it up and just attack Kaido down. Talk about stressful for your
Hmm.
last match, right? If this is
Yep.
if this, is in fact enough to propel Ryan, Miguel, and Patrick into the top 8, as we very well think it could be, they're going to have very little turnaround, that's for sure, and a lot of stress coming from their last round. But hey, once you're into the top 8, anything can happen. So down to possibly the key turn here.
Yeah, I think Dominic picked up a bitter triumph return too. So another kill spell that would be able to clear one of the soul stones. Be trade for the other one. Yeah, man, this game is quite a few turns away. Assuming infinite time, it would be quite a few turns away from natural conclusion. But I mean, you do gotta think that Dominic is in a decent spot. Got a kill spell for one of the soul stones, has the Restless Reef. But yeah, they realize it's going to be a draw, and there you go.
All right. Well, you know what? That takes us to the end of round 7 here in Lansing. Corbin Hostler, Devin Doomwake O'Donnell, thank you for hanging out with us. That has been the end of our Swiss rounds, and that means it's the beginning of our top 8. So when we come back on the other side, we will have that top 8 for you. We will have that bracket, and then we will have that gameplay, and we are going to spend the evening watching some team trios. Cannot think of a better way to do it than with the NRG Championship Series in Lansing. We'll see you on the other side.